Purple Daily is daily Vikings entertainment. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die.
I will ride with this group.
Seriously, man. Please.
And away we go.
And welcome into Purple Access. Look who's back, Chip Scoggins. Back from Greece, right?
Italy.
Italy. Okay, very nice. Very nice.
10 days in Italy, so I'm a little turned upside down there. We got back late last night, so I'm still on
What's
Italy
the time difference?
7 hours.
Okay, that's bad. It's not terrible, but it's bad.
It's not terrible. Yeah. And I would say for anybody watching, if you haven't been there, put it on your bucket list because Italy is magical.
Food recommendations?
Oh my God. I had lunch today. This is the first time I didn't have wine with lunch. And
this is a mistake. Go back.
Re-entry is going to be tough.
Go back. Go back. If you can get wine with lunch, that's a good deal.
Yeah, the food was epic. It was, and just culturally. And I was telling somebody today, is like, you think about our history here.
Yeah.
It goes back a couple hundred years, right?
Yep.
You do some tours there, and like, this was built in 200 BC.
Yeah.
A little bit older. It's a little older than Woodbury, Minnesota. I can tell you that.
Yeah. So what's their sports scene like? Lots of soccer, I'm sure.
Lots of soccer. Yeah. I didn't. We didn't even turn on the TV. Is that the sirens going off?
Tornado sirens. If you are like, what the hell is that? They just started them, so we're doing.
Yeah, what is that in my ear?
Our springtime test of the civil defense.
I think soccer, but I didn't turn on a TV there. Didn't really look at my phone much. I tried to just soak it in, but I would have to think soccer probably, right?
Yeah. That's my guess. I have no idea. I've never been. It's
also I did see some soccer stadiums and fields, so I would presume that would be the sport of choice. But I think probably basketball is probably pretty big there, right?
You're probably right about that. Yeah, probably. So thanks to our guy Seifert, stepped in, pinch hit last week.
Thank you, Seifert.
Was amused that the fact that he is the backup, but he did a fantastic job as always. So thank you to Kevin.
Yeah.
So let's start here. I don't know if you've caught up on stuff yet, but O'Connell did talk at the league meetings now, a week and a half ago or so in Florida. And I want to start here. So we apparently for now have cleared up the quarterback thing. Like we're all in on JJ. And let's just assume now, because we've talked about the other permutations about this, Chipper. So let's just assume that this is on the up and up. It is McCarthy's job. They're going to sign, post-draft. After the compensatory pick problem is gone, they're going to sign Joe Flacco or something. Yeah. Here's my question to you. What do you think our expectations should be now for McCarthy going into the build up, the ramp up, training camp then? But what do you think with a roster that has definitely been bolstered? Like you've got some nice veteran free agent signings. You've still got the 2024 class as well. What do you think is a realistic and fair expectation of what JJ McCarthy should do as a first-year starter, technically, I guess not a rookie anymore, in 2025?
Yeah, I don't think it used to be like conventional wisdom that if you're starting a rookie, or let's just call him a rookie for a first-year quarterback, that there's going to be struggles and that you're going to win 6 games and then you take a big leap and like almost like training wheels type thing, right? And I think that's kind of an archaic notion when we see that guys, not to say it's like this for everyone, but we saw guys step in last year and play really well, that rookie class. And so I think the fact that he is surrounded by, that they bolstered, that they bolstered their offensive line, that they bolstered their running game. I think I think the expectations have to be that he can come in there and produce at a pretty high level because they're not asking him to be a savior and elevate everybody around him, right? I think that's where rookie quarterbacks get in trouble when you put him in situations where they like, okay, go be a savior, elevate, make guys better. Well, that's hard to do. But if you surround guys, I mean, obviously Sam Darnold has experience, a lot of experience more than what JJ has. But you see, if you put guys in good situations with good coaches and surround them with good talent, unless it's just a complete disaster, I mean, there's no reason why the expectation should have. You should think that, well, this guy's going to struggle. He's going to learn on the job this year, and next year he's going to be really good. Does that make sense?
Yes. And I also think too that when you see the body of work through 3 years by O'Connell, Chipper, that we've seen, and it's been with guys that have played, Cousins for, a year plus, then he got hurt. Darnold, who was a failure, but had been around. But I do think that the body of work from what O'Connell has shown us too is encouraging with McCarthy. And one of the interesting things that Kevin O'Connell talked about when he sat down at that breakfast in Florida was that he wants to be even more ingrained in the run game, which I think is huge, right? And I think he's telling the truth, because if you've got Jones and now Jordan Mason as well, and an offensive line that can block, especially the interior, I think that's the key thing here. Because I think if you put too much on McCarthy's plate, he might be fine. I don't know, but I think that would be tempting fate. But I think if you are going to take the run game seriously, if you're going to be able to punch the ball in from the 5, which sounds stupid, but it's true, they've struggled. I think that's where you put McCarthy in a position to be successful.
Yeah, and I don't think you make the trade for Mason if you're not fully committed to being more committed to the run and better at it. You obviously got some nastiness injected into your offensive line to where, to me, it's short yardage and red zone. Like, those are where we're going to see it show up the most, right? Makes sense, obviously, short yardage, but I think red zone, being able to run the ball there and not just have to rely on McCarthy to make some plays. If you can do it two ways down there. And the thing about McCarthy, too, is a couple things. One, he's a rookie on the field, but I do think having a year in the building, even though he was rehabbing, and just being around Darnold and seeing him prepare and seeing how O'Connell gets him prepared, and McCown, and just kind of living the life of an NFL quarterback and seeing what the meetings, the walkthroughs, all those things that he got to take part in. I mean, I think that advances you a little bit, right? It's still, you're not on the field playing, but it advances you a little bit.
Definitely.
And the other thing I like about McCarthy is, I mean, this guy won a national championship. He played in some big time games, right? Doesn't mean you're going to be successful in NFL, but it doesn't hurt to have to play in some college football playoff games, to play in Ohio State games, to play on these, in a big program where 100,000 people are there watching you. There's expectations. There's, so he's lived in the spotlight here for, his college existence, and a bright spotlight, the brightest, at that level. So I think that has that's given him some maturity, some performance maturity, if that makes sense. So I think those two things, because we saw at the end of training camp last year when he was I thought it really started to click. Early on, it was, you could tell his passes were a little bit off, and there was a lot going on probably in his mind, learning an offense, right?
Right.
But I think towards that second week of training camp, man, he really started to look like he was playing faster, and you started to see his physical talent show up a lot. So I don't think you have to hold back on expectations. I'm not saying, start the parade route or anything, but I just think you should think that if he, you have O'Connell's imprints on there, I just think there's no reason to think he can't have a really good season.
I think there's a positive too in the fact that although the sample size folks weren't pleased, I think the fact that Harbaugh had him run a pro style at Michigan really
Yeah.
helps him out because
Yeah.
like a lot of the college playbook just does not translate. Some of it does, but
Yeah.
a lot of it does not. In McCarthy's case, I think it did. Now that left some of the critics saying, well, we didn't see, as many passes, blah, blah, blah. But the fact is, a lot of those probably would have translated to be screen passes and things
Well,
like
that's
that
it.
that you don't
That-
really need to see.
Well, and my comeback to that was always, I mean, because he didn't have a high volume of throws. It's like, well, that's
Right.
not an indictment of him. That's Jim Harbaugh's system. That's
And
what he does.
And that can be a pro system.
It's a pro system, and we've seen some offenses. You see college offenses that are gimmicky, that the quarterback are making throws that they're not going to be asked to make, and it's one where you get the ball, all this stuff. So I never looked at that as a knock on McCarthy that he didn't throw the ball a lot. It's just that he ran a pro style offense under Harbaugh, and that's just kind of what his system was.
And he did a good job of executing what he was asked to do, which to me is paramount. That's important. And I also think sometimes when QBs do come from, and they can certainly be athletically talented, but when they do come from a gimmicky scheme, it sort of it gives you a false sense of draft security. And so you're like, I saw this guy do this and this and this. And then he comes to training camp and it's like, oh, okay, now it's time to run our system. And it's like, whoa. Yeah. So the only thing I would say, Chip, because I'm with you completely, I don't think, one, it's a bad idea for a rookie QB to sit.
No.
The Jordan Love thing is way too excessive, but the 1 year is fine. The only negative potentially that I can find in McCarthy's 2024 experience was the fact that he didn't get to practice. But
That's
beyond that,
part.
You're right. He did, he's watching film, getting sessions with McCown and with O'Connell. And so the only potential setback is he didn't get to practice, and that's unfortunate, but it's certainly not a death knell.
No, I mean, that was my one thing where he's going to do all the things. He's going to do the virtual training and all these things. And I think they simulated it as best they could, but it's still not the same as putting on your cleats and going out there and practicing and doing all those things. But, does that mean he's behind? I wouldn't say that. I think the value is absorbing, right? Listening and absorbing and being asked questions and still, there can be value in that, and watching Darnold, watch the way he prepared and all the things that he had to go through to get, film study and extra film study and all these things that he did. So I think that, so it's not like this is going to be his first year in that regards. And like, oh, how does an NFL quarterback, well, he saw it, get ready for a game. He saw it, he lived it, so, So, yeah, I'm curious, too, to see where they land with the backup. I got to imagine it's going to be a veteran who's been around the block a lot, Joe Flacco, that type of unless he signed while I was in Italy and checked out. I haven't seen
No,
it.
he did not sign.
But someone that fits that profile that can really be a positive influence.
Yes.
On the sideline during games, in the meeting rooms,
in the room
during the week, all those things, because there'll be times where McCarthy throws a pick and it might be getting rattled or the momentum swing. Well, O'Connell can't sit there with him. He's got to coach the game. McCown will sit there, but it'll be good to have a veteran in his ear saying, okay, here's what you saw. Here's what happened, drawing up. I think that'll be very important for his kind of growth. Growth this season as the guy going through it for the first time.
It's a fine line too, because this team is good enough that if McCarthy goes down again, you need someone who can actually play.
Yeah.
But to your, but to the grand point, you don't want it to be a guy who is champing at the bit to play and trying to displace him. Pressure's not bad, but it's going to be a very fine line to walk, because if the knee flares up, I don't know, you definitely don't have a roster where it's like, oh, we'll see you next year. You've got a roster that's set to win. Ideally it wins with McCarthy, but you do have to have some type of backup preparation plan, because I always go back to what 2016, right? And you go to training camp with Teddy. Now, nobody foresaw that. But I remember at the time I did write, if he goes down, now I'm thinking like ankle, right?
Not.
Sean Hill was the backup. And it's like,
I know. Yeah.
This is too good a team for Sean Hill. And Rick, when Teddy got hurt, went out and made the Bradford trade. But that being said, Sean Hill as the backup, and poor Sean Hill won that first game against the Titans. And if you recall, ended up on the injury report. He didn't get hurt. He was just so damn old. And Flacco's old, but I do think he can probably step in a little bit more.
That's right. Yeah. And I'm curious to see, as we talking about O'Connell, talking about the run game. I'm curious to see what this offense looks like.
Yeah.
You think it's going to be demonstrably different in terms of the run pass balance?
No, in fairness to O'Connell, no. I think it'll be demonstrably different than it was 2 years ago. But if you look, last year it was not off the charts bad. Like he did run more. I think we're now into the point of talking about the effectiveness, though.
Well, that's what he was saying last year when they went and got Aaron Jones. It's like, it's not so much volume, it's effectiveness.
But the volume picked up quite a bit last year.
But the volume picked up. And I guess I buy that to some degree, but I think if you are more effective, you're probably gonna have more volume. And I just think it's situational. Like you said, I think it's gonna be more situational where you're in the red zone, you're in the inside the 5, you've got to be able to run the ball in from right there. Yeah. And their inability to do that. And that's not just running backs, I think that's offensive line as much as it is anything. And maybe scheme. Maybe they show some new looks on offense where they, I just think I think this has the potential to be a more versatile offense than what we've seen.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. The only blessing of the Week 18 debacle in Detroit, too, though, was that hammered home what you're saying, which is if your quarterback is struggling, and by the way, trying to score on passes from the 5 is difficult because it's so condensed, and if you can't run, you are screwed. Like you are not going to win in the playoffs. You're not going to win crucial, probably late games in the season. And so if there's anything good that came from that, I think that game drove home the point. The quarterback is struggling, and we are on the doorstep, and we cannot score. So what can you do to fix that?
And that's been kind of the question with O'Connell is this who he is as a play caller, just, aggressiveness, lean on the pass, or was it a lack of trust in his run game that he said, you know what, I'm not even going to bother. I don't trust that we can be effective there, so I'm going to go with something I do trust.
Yep.
I don't think a lack of trust should be a problem this year with the run game.
Yeah.
Now, you know what I'm saying? So it's I think these moves signal an acknowledgement that there has to be more, just more reliance and more ability to run the ball in certain situations where, it can't all be on JJ McCarthy to, fly around and make plays and do all that.
Right.
So I'm curious to see kind of what this looks like in training camp as they put it together and how they build around McCarthy and kind of what O'Connell's approach is going to be in terms of play calling with him.
Both lines, offensive and defensive, I think, are also, because they're going to be more stout, they're going to be tougher, I think is going to, offensively at least, embolden O'Connell more as a play caller to run. Like, I think that we think, oh man, the running back's not that great, or in Aaron Jones' case, he was good. He was just banged up. And the addition will definitely make them a tougher team as far as the running backs go. That being said, I think the most important thing now, again, in the deep red, is you're going to have at least 2 interior guys that you feel, okay, you know what, we're going to run behind these guys, and defenses are going to have to account for that. So I don't know that like we're going to see this as some major seismic O'Connell play calling shift, but I think that the subtlety of the change is going to be the most important thing. And you are going to see them finally consistently, hopefully, knock on wood for their sake, punch the ball in.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be a dramatic shift in the way they line up or even run past. But I think you're right that it'll be dramatic if they're down there in the red zone in the deep red, running the ball and running the ball effectively. Yeah, I mean that's going to be like, wow, we haven't seen that before. Like that's something in their toolbox now that they didn't have before, and so I just think it opens up a lot of possibilities for them. So I didn't see O'Connell's quotes. Was it in terms of JJ's health and timeline? Still the same message that everything's flying along how they expect it to be.
Yep. He basically said that Rodgers had reached out to him and them, that they couldn't dismiss it. Yeah. My personal opinion was he didn't want to offend him. He likes quarterbacks; they're buddies. I think he did not want to dismiss it. And keep in mind too, if you get out of Aaron's good stead, the guy holds a grudge for 10,000 years. So that's how it came off. Like, I'm not sure it's dead yet. Until the guy signs with Pittsburgh, I'm not sure, I don't trust it completely. But going along with the premise that what O'Connell said in Florida is absolutely true, and it's true for now, I do think it's going to be intriguing because O'Connell, I think, deserves a lot of credit for taking Cousins from a statistical, like a box score monster, to being a really effective, at least for a year, and then part of the next year before the Achilles. And I mean, you cannot argue with what he did, body of work with Darnold. Now it's a kid, though, and this is sort of his prized project.
Well, and this is a big part of why he was hired, right?
Oh, yeah.
You didn't know what else you're getting in terms of the leadership and culture. I mean, you thought you knew, but so much of it was as his ability to identify, draft, and develop a franchise quarterback, which has been, as Vikings fans know, a hole in the organization for
impossibility,
so
basically.
So Judd, where are they sitting salary cap wise? Because they still have quite a bit of money left.
Space left. Yep.
What do you think? What do you think is going on there?
I don't know. I think they're going to add. Well, I think there's a potential that they could add somewhere. Now we did get a tip because we do solicit to our every Friday our tip line, Purple Daily Tip Line. We did get a tip from a guy who said his daughter was in a Florida, I forget, Fort Lauderdale nightclub, and saw a young man in a Vikings hat in the club, and asked him, "Hey, are you with the Vikings?" And he said, "No, but I'm going to be. My name is Asante Samuel Jr." And so we've been, it's been picked up, aggregated throughout the country, no question about it, because you never know. It could be right. But it does feel like something else is coming.
Yeah.
And now I don't know. They could move cash around. Who knows? They could extend somebody. They could do this or that. Yeah. It does seem to me like the cornerback room could add one more person. Yeah. And I also think too, Chipper, here's one. Let's talk about wide receivers, okay?
Yeah.
Because you've got the best in the world. Justin Jefferson is beyond peril. He's the best. He's great. Jordan Addison is a very good two. Could be one lots of places, but might be suspended for, and it would not surprise me if this came down training camp, for 3 games for his off-the-field issues in Los Angeles last July. Jalen Naylor, who O'Connell talked about in a very kind way, is the third guy. Now, here's the intriguing thing. 3 games in baseball or hockey or basketball is like, it's 3 games.
Yeah.
In football, it's 3 of 17. So the more I think about this, I wonder if something else is coming down the pike. Because when you look at the depth chart, so if Jordan Addison gets pinched for 3 games, all right?
Yeah.
It's right now, the depth chart. Excuse me. Jefferson, Naylor, Rondale Moore, Thayer Thomas, Tim Jones, who I think is more of a special teams guy that they signed from Jacksonville. Yeah. He had 17 receptions over 3 seasons with the Jaguars. Just Deshaun Jones and Lucky Jackson. Those are the guys going to training camp right now.
Yeah.
I don't know that, and I know he caught touchdowns. I don't know that I trust Naylor for a 3-game span, though, to become the number 2 receiver.
Unless you just say, we're going to really rely on TJ Hawkinson in those games, and Josh Oliver, and we're going to use them as a TJ's getting
Maybe.
Yeah, but who else would be out there that?
Well, I'm saying, do you draft one higher than we're expecting?
I don't think
there's not a wide swath of really good free agents left.
I just don't think so. But that might be one of those training camp cuts where you see a guy and you think, okay, plug a veteran in here that we can maybe lean on a little bit more for the first 3 games.
Yeah.
But it's just, I guess I'm so used to them not having much cap space that it's like,
I know.
You have to spend this. What are you doing?
Well, it's been since 2018.
I know.
Starting with Kirk, the first Kirk contract.
Yeah. So it's hey, this is what happens when you're not spending it all on the quarterback, right?
I know. I know. But the weird thing too is, you have a first year starter at the most important position, but you have a team that has expectations, big ones. Yeah. And you're not going to internally say, well, it's McCarthy, it's fine. No, they're going to expect him to develop quickly. They're, I think, going to try to, as we just discussed, not put too much on his plate, but yet expect what they do put on his plate, he can execute. But this, to me, when you look at this roster, in no way, shape, or form is this, well, in 2026, we're going to be really good.
No.
They went out and signed guys, a bunch of veterans who aren't young. They signed them with the intention of trying to win and continue to be on that track that they were in 2024 right into this coming season.
Yeah. I mean, we get so caught up with, win totals. I mean, you can't look at that and say, because you're not going to say, okay, 14 wins. You mean,
right.
But they got better on paper.
Yes.
This offseason.
Yes.
And now it's just, so you don't do all that and then say, okay, we're going to bring this quarterback along slowly and we'll see where we are, or we expect him to make this big jump after he's had this.
Yeah, no.
No, it's like you go in there thinking, hey, we're going to get this guy ready to play at a high level. And I think that's, I think that is the luxury of having a coach who is that invested and has a resume with his, of getting the most out of quarterbacks, that you have that confidence that you can go in there. It's like, okay, O'Connell's going to get this young guy ready to play at a pretty high level.
Yep.
I mean, I don't think that's unrealistic to make that statement.
No. And it's the cheat code, right? Because the cheat code is we have a quarterback on a rookie contract and therefore can go sign a bunch of guys. But the cheat code but the extension of the cheat code is, okay, that's great, that's awesome. Who's going to develop him? And in this case, it's O'Connell, which until he proves he can't do it, which I don't expect, you trust that. So that's sort of the marriage of okay, coach can do it. You drafted the right guy, which is paramount. But if you put them together now on that contract, which still has, it's going to have 3 more years left, and then the 5th-year option, you're putting yourself in a really wide window. But it's very, very apparent that window, if it didn't open in 24, and they did win 14 games, so you could say it did. But if it didn't open in 24, it is opening in 25.
Yeah, because it's still an old roster. I mean, because you're relying on free agency for the most of it. So it's still a roster built around, veterans or guys that are in their second or third contracts that are in their prime. So it'll be interesting to see how they supplement this with the draft. There's always a marriage of what you do in free agency to allow you to with your draft. I as I sit here today, I think I would, because you filled holes, you can probably look at best player available there. That, but I would cornerback or another defensive lineman.
That's what I was going to say. I think interior. I think defensive line.
Yeah.
I don't think you did anything to solve that problem long term.
No, and that's what that's the thing. It's like you still need that. The reinforcements coming after these guys get old, and so I think probably defensive tackle or corner.
Yep, I would say defensive tackle, corner. I would not be totally opposed to still interior offensive line.
Yeah,
Brandel's an unknown. Ryan Kelly, nice addition, but he's not young. Now, Fries is not old, so he I trust, but him I trust. But when you look at what they've done, they filled a lot of gaps for the short term. They filled a couple for the longer term. And I mean, this is the most important thing. They have to start to get the draft right. And I don't mean just a pick or two. They have to. Like that becomes the most important thing because, people get tired of the negativity of the following statement I'm about to make, but that 2022 draft is really going to bite you in the ass now because those guys should all be entering their prime. A bunch of them, not all of them, a bunch of them. And you don't have really Butkus to speak of.
Well, and that's the thing. You're constantly chasing to make up for that.
Yes.
Right? Whether it's free agency, I mean, it eventually, like the bill comes due for not having those for missing those. So it's a big draft for Kwesi, which I unplugged while I was in Italy. He didn't sign a contract, right?
He did not, but Markwell said they are working towards it. They want to get it done. He did everything he could to sort of stamp out. He did a lot to stamp out the rumors, the rampant rumors, and
all the
Kwesi,
speculation that's talking about it.
He basically doubled down on what Kwesi said at the press conference that you went to. Yeah. Mark Wilf doubled down and said, we fully planned to get this done. The one thing I found out that I did not know, and it was reported by a few folks, including
I think
your guy Ben Gessling, is that the contract goes through next year's draft. It doesn't end. O'Connell's contract before the extension was signed was set to expire after the season. Kwesi's contract and I guess GM contracts ordinarily go through the following draft. So he was actually signed through the 2026 draft.
Yeah, I had talked to someone in an organization that after that press conference, it got so much of created so much of a talker that he technically has 2 drafts left, this one and next one.
So you just wouldn't get to the next one.
That's right.
If you didn't get an extension, you probably wouldn't get the 26 draft.
You wouldn't get that.
But I mean, I would be surprised. We can debate him, but I still would be surprised if he didn't get. If he wants one, I'd be shocked if he didn't get one. You won what? 13 games in year 1. Got off to a terrible start in year 2, but we're on course, I think, to come back and get a playoff berth. And Kirk gets hurt, and then won 14 games. So, O'Connell gets a ton of credit, but I would be really surprised. It just seems weird that it's not done yet, but I think that our antennas are always up when contracts don't get done, and it's hard not to have your antenna up. Yeah,
your antenna goes up, but I agree with you. I'd be surprised if it doesn't.
So 4 picks right now going into the draft, which is 2 weeks from the date that we are recording this on. Give me your guess now, and we'll talk about this next week too. Give me your guess now. How many picks do you think the Vikings make over the 3 days for the draft in a couple weeks?
6.
Okay. So you think they trade back in the first round, but not out?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think they trade back and accumulate.
6 is fair. It's not a lot, but it's fair.
Yeah. Because there are 4 now, right? If you trade back, you're going to get 1 more. And then if you right, do some more wheeling and dealing. I just it seems logical with having so few picks that you trade back this year, and given what you did in free agency, I think they've given themselves a little more opportunity to do that.
I would like to see 2 day 2 picks.
Yeah,
because I don't know, if you trade back and you start and you accumulate a 6th round pick, and I know that can be swapped then, and you can make that another pick and get to the 5th round and all this.
Yeah.
But I mean, I would like to see. I'd love to see in some way 3 picks over the first 3 rounds.
Yeah.
Just because of the quality potential there.
Well, that's it. It's like, accumulating all these 5th and 6th and 7th rounders. I understand the volume idea. Like, the more you have, the better chance you're giving yourself to hit on some.
Yeah.
I go the other way. Give me the higher picks and the fewer, I understand, you have fewer chances to get it right, but you're also, I think there's just the percentages are higher that those players are going to turn into productive or high level players for you. So I fall in line with what you're saying there too.
Absolutely. All right, Chipper, we'll talk to you next week.
All right, brother.
A little more purple access. See you later. Bye.